Welcome back to Actors Turn Directors. This is my interview with Leonard Nimoy, part one, I should say, the late Leonard Nimoy. And I always considered my interview with him as PhD in actor-director relationship. This interview was part of a series of 10 interviews I conducted with A-list directors who started out as actors so that I could learn from them the wisdom on how to elicit the best performance from an actor. These interviews were sponsored by the Directors Guild of America, DGA, and I'm forever thankful to them as the wisdom these masters shared with me when I made my first film. The LA Times compared my work with John Cassavetes, and Box Office Magazine described me as, quote, an actor's director, unquote. I will be reading from my DGA sponsored book, Actors Turn Directors, on eliciting the best performance from an actor, which is available as an ebook on Amazon. To start my interview, the first question for Mr. Nimoy: viewing your films, which range from Star Trek series to The Good Mother to Funny About Love, made me realize how versatile you are, moving from adventure to comedy, sci-fi to intense human drama. Leonard: well, it's been an interesting ride. It all happened in a very strange, in the back door kind of way, much of it by happy circumstances. Question: what inspired you to become an actor, and who were some of the teachers who influenced you? Leonard: I was influenced very strongly by two young directors, Boris Siegel and Elliot Silverstein, who were directing in my neighborhood when I was a teenager in Boston. Boris was very vital, very talented director who did some films and a lot of television. I think that he did one of the early Elvis Presley movies. Elliot Silverstein directed Cat Ballou and a man named Horse. I worked in plays for both of them, and eventually, when I played a juvenile during a production of the play Awake and Sing that Boris directed, I became obsessed with the idea of acting for a living. Question: were your parents enthusiastic about it? Leonard: no, no. On the contrary, they were very negative about it. I came out to California when I was 18 to study and become an actor, and I stumbled a lot along the way. I guess everybody has to. Boris and Elliot arrived here after going to Yale, and I worked for both of them on various projects and bit by bit put a career together. Question: at what point did you decide you wanted to be a director, and how did you make that transition? Leonard: I had a strange path toward directing. I was often advised in the early years to be a director, but I was so bent on being an actor that when the advice came, I often rejected it. I was actually somewhat insulted because I thought, is this a comment on my acting? Is this a comment on my potential as an actor? It was as though if I turned to directing at that time, it would have seemed an abandonment of my immediate goal and an admission of my failure as an actor, and I just couldn't do that. I directed occasionally because opportunities came along that didn't threaten my acting career. So I directed a play here and there and some radio. I was pretty good, and it was offered to me a lot more frequently than acting work. But I still felt that I had to do this acting thing. So I persisted. Then I started teaching for Jeff Corey. I was a student of his for a couple of years, and at the end of the blacklist period, when Jeff started working again as an actor, he asked me to teach some of his classes, and that too led to directing offers. People then thought of me again as a teacher director, but I was still very reluctant about the idea. After I had done the Star Trek series and spent a couple of years of Mission Impossible, I signed on for a year at Universal. By now, I was a little more relaxed about the idea that maybe I should do some directing. I guess I felt I had some distance as an actor, and now it was okay for me to broaden my interests. I did my first DGA job while I was at Universal directing a night gallery episode, and I was very happy and pleased with the process. But there were still a lot of things I wanted to do as an actor. So during the 70s, I went back and did a lot of theater. Broadway twice, a lot of regional theater, a national tour, and a couple of plays, all as an actor, with the exception of one person show called Vincent, in which I played Theo Van Gogh talking about his brother Vincent Van Gogh. Later, I directed it for television as well at the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis. Then there was a moment after we had done, I think, the second Star Trek movie, when producer Harv Bennett, who had a TV series called The Powers of Matthew Starr on the air briefly, just called me out of the blue and said, "I'd like you to direct an episode for us." And I thought, maybe it's time I got the message here. I was delighted. I thought it was really very refreshing. And I went and I did it. I think it was a confidence builder to be called and go and do the job. Then the big turn came when Spock, my character, died in Star Trek II, and the studio Paramount clearly wanted to find some way to introduce him into the films. They called me to a meeting, and the question that was put to me was very interesting. It was very open-ended. In effect, they said, "We'd like to know if you'd like to have anything to do with the making of Star Trek III," which was a nice way of saying, "We'd like you in the movie. How do we go about doing this?" So something inside of me said that maybe it's time to stand up and take a position here. And I said, "Yes, I'd like to direct the picture." And I got the job. Spock was reintroduced into the film, and it became my feature film directorial debut. It went well, and I was called to Jeff Katzenberg's office even before the picture opened, and told they wanted me to do another one. So I did Star Trek IV, which was quite successful and had some comedy in it. By the time that picture opened, Michael Eisner and Jeff Katzenberg had gone to Disney, and they called me to direct Three Men and a Baby, and one thing led to another. Question: how do you elicit the best performance from an actor? Leonard: it seems to me a lot of events have to form before you get to the point when the actor can give you a performance of merit. And by that I mean the script has to have some merit. The role has to be playable. It has to have integrity so that it makes sense from the beginning to the middle to the end and can be encompassed by a performance. I think it's vital that the director have a grasp on how the performance should function within the piece, so that if there is any doubt or question in the actor's mind, the director can solidly be supportive. Question: does the director have to know as much about the character as the actor does? Leonard: obviously so, but I expect the actor to bring a lot. I hope for surprises from the actor. Question: what kind of surprises? Leonard: I believe good actors, to use the generic term, discover things by immersing themselves in a role. Working from that immersion then touches a flow, moments, thoughts that fleet across the face, a change of attitude, a blink of an eye, a look, a wonderment, a puzzlement, or something that the director can't necessarily anticipate. Question: it seems to me that the director has to keep an objective overall look because he or she has the overall picture. Leonard: yes. Now you come to the question of whether all the things that the actor brings fit into the overall scheme. It's a question of direction, a question of making choices, saying to the actor, that's very interesting and very exciting, but it doesn't necessarily fit the larger scheme of things. That's not what this movie is about. If a clever idea doesn't work, let's try something else. That is the directorial process. Question: as an actor, what sort of preparation do you do for a role? Leonard: well, the preparation would be determined by the demands of the specific role itself. In some cases, it would require a certain amount of academic research. Let's find out who these people were in their time and place. What's the geographical setting of the character? What are the sociological constraints surrounding the character? Where does this character come from? What kind of society? What kind of home environment? Family relationships? Married? Single? Father? Childless? Divorced? What is the psychological design of the character? What's the truth about the life of this person? That kind of sociological and geographical research is sometimes very helpful if you need to find an entry into the life of the character. And sometimes the director can be very helpful in pointing out certain aspects that the actor may not be conscious of or in touch with. The director may educate the actor by perhaps providing literature on the subject or providing a role model for the actor, saying, this person in some way is like this such and such person that we both know. In some cases, if you feel an immediate grasp on the character as you read the script, you don't have to do all that. Just let your instincts take over and say, I've been this person, or I have a person in my mind who helps me immediately to get in touch with the life of this person. Question: at what point do you create the character's nuances? Leonard: that's an interesting question. Sometimes, as an actor, I'm able to best grasp a character through a gesture, a particular character gesture that has been called the psychological gesture of the character. What is the psychological gesture of a character? It is a stroking of the chin, a studious thing. An image that comes to mind is Captain Queeg in the Caine Mutiny, who was constantly rolling these metal balls in his hand, a gesture that tells you something about the character. Question. In that particular case, the gesture was written in Leonard. Yes, that's an enormous entry into a character for an actor. And in this particular case, a specific instruction for the actor existed in the source material, the book and the screenplay. Most of the time, however, the actor has to discover one. Does the character stand with his hands behind his back or hands in his pockets? It makes a big difference. For example, in the movie Body Heat, Ted Danson would every once in a while break into a song and a dance, which was peculiar behavior for an assistant district attorney, but which made the character different and memorable. This brings to an end the first part of the Leonard Nimoy interview, which, like I mentioned in the beginning, I always related to this interview as a PhD in the actor-director relationship. He was very detailed and he helped me tremendously in my own work as a director. I hope you found this information valuable, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Personally, I'm not concerned about building huge audience for this, but I do hope that people who this information may be valuable for will tune in, and it does me great good because it is helping me revisit these great interviews as I prepare to direct another film. I thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to reconnecting with you on the Leonard Nimoy interview part 2 coming very soon. Again, thank you very much.